Imagine stepping into a palace so opulent it could blind you with gold. Crystal chandeliers dangle like icicles from impossibly high ceilings. Silk tapestries flutter softly in the breeze. But then, something hits your nose. A thick, foul stench creeps through the corridors like an unwelcome ghost. This isn't just any royal estate. This is Versailles, the crown jewel of 17th century France. A place where elegance wore perfume to mask decay, and women wrapped in velvet lived in filth you wouldn't believe. Welcome back to the past. If you're new here, don't forget to subscribe for more hidden corners of history, the ones they leave out of textbooks. And before we dive in, tell me in the comments, where in the world are you watching from? It always amazes me how these old secrets travel across time and reach curious minds like yours. Now, brace yourself, because these are the 7 most disturbing hygiene habits of royal women, and by the end, you may never look at luxury the same way again. In our world, not bathing is considered unhygienic, but in 17th century France, it was seen as smart, even virtuous. Most royal women, regardless of their wealth or status, avoided full-body bathing for months, even years. Why? Because doctors believed that water, especially warm water, opened the pores and let in deadly diseases. The irony? Avoiding baths often led to the very infections they feared. So instead of stepping into a tub, these noble ladies would dab themselves with cloths soaked in vinegar, alcohol, or even their own saliva. It was meant to cleanse. It often just made the stench worse. Royal beauty, it turned out, was more about illusion than hygiene. Versailles may have been an architectural marvel, but it had almost no functioning toilets. Instead, chamber pots were hidden behind curtains, under beds, or placed in corners. When they were full, servants simply emptied them, sometimes right out of windows. And yes, passers-by often got caught in the wrong place, at the wrong time. Some nobles didn't even bother with pots. Urinating in stairwells or defecating in palace gardens wasn't unheard of. The scent, unforgettable. Foreign dignitaries left with stories they probably couldn't share over dinner. Elaborate wigs and hairstyles defined royal status. But beneath the powdered curls and towering constructions was a living nightmare. Women used animal fat, like beef tallow, to sculpt their styles. The result? A sticky, lice-infested ecosystem. Lice weren't occasional visitors, they were residents. Special scratching tools called lice claws were used in public to subtly itch the scalp. These tools were often as ornate as the jewelry they wore. No one dared show up without a wig, even if it meant hosting a miniature zoo atop their head. When you think of royal banquets, you imagine roasted feasts and silver goblets. But what if I told you that raw sewage often leaked into palace kitchens? The lack of proper plumbing meant wastewater would sometimes flood cooking areas. Refrigeration didn't exist. Spoiled meat and rotting fruit were served regularly. Tapeworms, parasites, and food poisoning were common among nobles. Even Louis XIV is rumored to have passed a 6-inch tapeworm, dressed in gold, feasting on rot. That's the contradiction of royal life. There's perhaps no greater violation of privacy than what royal women endured during childbirth. It was considered a public event. Dozens, sometimes hundreds, of courtiers, priests, and advisors crammed into the Queen's birthing chamber to watch the heir arrive. Why? To make sure no baby switching scandal could ever unfold. Women in labor weren't soothed, they were observed. Marie Antoinette famously fainted during labor, not from pain, but from heat, exhaustion, and humiliation. Royal dignity stopped where childbirth began. Makeup was a staple of royal fashion, thick white powder for the face, rouge for the cheeks. But this wasn't modern makeup. It contained lead, mercury, and arsenic. Yes, literal poison. The more pale and powdered a woman appeared, the more elegant she seemed. But over time, this beauty ritual rotted the skin, led to hair loss and sometimes death. Women saw their skin decay under the very mask meant to enhance it, and yet they powdered on, because beauty in court was survival. Royal fashion was breathtaking, corsets, gowns, and layer upon layer of intricate embroidery. But it came at a cost. Corsets restricted breathing, deformed ribs, and sometimes punctured internal organs. Dresses could weigh up to 30 pounds, making walking, let alone sitting, a daily ordeal. Add to this the constant need to appear perfect, and royal women lived inside gilded cages made of silk and steel. Appearances were everything. Comfort was nothing. History often paints royal women as pampered and privileged, queens of comfort and grace. But the reality? They were prisoners of tradition, fashion, and fear. Beneath the jewels and powdered wigs were women who scratched at lice, endured unspeakable childbirths, and lived among rot and parasites. They wore beauty like armor, but it rarely protected them. So the next time you see a portrait of a perfectly dressed noblewoman, remember, she may have looked divine, but she likely smelled like death warmed over. If you found this story as eye-opening as I did, make sure to hit that subscribe button, and let me know in the comments. Where in the world are you watching from? History may be behind us, but it still connects us in strange, unforgettable ways. Until next time, stay curious, because the past is always dirtier than it looks.